So I'm going to present a study that has been done by me and by my advisor, Dr. Rantoch. And in this study, we study how we can evaluate users' privacy perceptions about a given system. So the background for the study is privacy by design, in which the idea of privacy by design is to implement privacy solution from the very beginning and not after the system is already built. And it's a very important approach. It's part of the regulation, part of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and part of the EU General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. But like every other thing, there are also criticism. And one of the criticisms was done by Wong and Mulligan when they said that the design part of privacy by design is currently conducted from a narrow legal perspective. And they suggest to do it, to conduct design while taking human-computer interaction approach. For example, taking into account those who develop the system and also those who are using the system. So in our study, we're looking at the user's perspective in the context of privacy by design. And in privacy by design also look at the user. They call to protect the individuals. And what you see here is a screenshot taken from ECO's, it's UK's Information Commissioner Office. And how do we do this in practice refers to privacy by design in the context of the GDPR. So we see that they refer to the individuals. However, they refer to the individuals from organizational perspective. They don't call to involve the users in the development process, which is exactly what user-centered design is about, to involve the users during the development. And here in this diagram, we see that the users are involved at the beginning of the process, where the designers involved, they watch the users, they ask them questions, and also the users are involved in later phase of the study, where they're asked to test a prototype. So these are two different approaches, looking at the individuals from organizational perspective and actually involving them. So why to involve users? So what you see here is a screenshot taken from Facebook Messenger as it used to be in 2015. So back then, the messages were automatically sent with their location. So if I got the message, I could press on it and to see the sender's location. After users had complained about it, Facebook changed it. But we want to know how we can avoid similar cases from the first place, how we can implement privacy by design while taking the users into consideration. So I already mentioned our approach. So we're taking a user-centered design approach. Similar to having usability tests, we claim that we need to have privacy tests to involve the users. And specifically, we're going to look at A/B testing, one of user-centered design approach methodologies, in which we compare different designs, and we have small difference between the design, and we want to see the effect of these differences on our explored outcome, the usability, buying the product, or whatever. So we're going to take the same approach, but with privacy. We want to see how different privacy design affect a specific score. So the first thing that we need to ask is, what will be this score? Which privacy scale should we use? So reading privacy scales literature, we found that there are two main types of privacy scales. And the first one refers to individuals' privacy concerns. But this is not what we're looking for. We want to measure system privacy. And there are studies that suggested privacy scale that measured system privacy. However, most of them refer to information flow between users and the system. Not many of them refer to information flows that refer to the users in the system. So since we did not find scales that really fit what we look for, so we developed the scales ourselves. So I mentioned information flow between user and the system and information flow between users in the system. In social network studies, they found that users' perception, users' privacy concerns can be divided to two types. The first one is institutional privacy concerns, in which the users are concerned about possible usage that companies or government are doing with their personal information. So this is the institutional privacy concern. Another type is social privacy concern, in which the users are concerned about information access as it's done by people, their friends, family, colleagues, and etc. So when we come to develop our scale, we looked at two types of privacy literature. We're looking at privacy scales and popular privacy constructs. For example, privacy control, privacy risk, and we're also taking into account the difference between institutional and privacy concern. So just to be formal about our research objective, we want to find a framework to evaluate users' privacy perceptions of a given system, and you will see that this framework consists of dedicated scale and conducting A/B testing. Next, we want to evaluate our suggested framework, and last, as we know that there is a difference between institutional and social privacy, we want to know whether our framework is applicable for both cases. Okay, so what did we do? So we had a study that has two main phases. The first phase was developing the scale, and we conducted a survey study to develop the scale. And then we used the results of the first phase, the scale, to see if we can differentiate between privacy design, and to do this, we conducted A/B testing study. The participants for all the study were recruited by Amazon Mechanical Turk. Okay, so I will give a very short review of the first phase in which we developed the scale. We had two sub-studies in which we started with 47 questions, and based on the study results, we reduced the amount of these questions. We used all kinds of statistical analysis, including principal components analysis and exploratory factor analysis to get the final result. So the result is a scale that we named as User-Perceived System Privacy Scale, the UPSP scale. And our scale consists of 27 questions distributed between three distinct constructs: institutional, risk, and social. And I will give examples for each one of them. Okay, so on the right, you see the loadings as they were got from our exploratory factor analysis. So first example for the institutional construct. I believe I have control over how my personal information is used by X. X is the study that is the system that we are exploring. Then a risk construct. Considering the information I provide to X and the people who might see it, I think it would be risky to give my personal information to X. And the last one, the last social construct, it looks easy to restrict unintended people from viewing my personal information on X. So this is the first phase. We have this part of the question of the scale. Okay, so the next step was we want to differentiate between privacy design. So to do that, we're going to use A/B testing. So we developed 5 different scenarios. Each scenario represents an application. And since we want to explore whether our framework is applicable for both social and institutional, we had 3 scenarios that covered social aspects, in which the privacy issue was the information flow between users, and 2 institutional privacy aspects. Per each scenario, we had 2 privacy designs. One is more privacy respectful than the other. Altogether, we had 10 conditions, and each participant was presented with 1 condition only. So I will show you how it looks from the participant perspective. So this is one example. This is I find breath scenario. So the participants were presented with the application name, I find breath, then a very short explanation of what the application does. In this case, it's an application that helps the user to find the restaurant based on their location, and you can also reserve a table in the restaurant, and a screenshot of the application. Then a specific scenario was presented, and this case was different between the 2 conditions, since it exemplified how each design worked in each condition. Okay, so I told you that we had 3 social aspects and two social scenarios, 3 social and 2 institutional. So this example of a social privacy aspect. In this case, the participants were told that if the restaurant is marked in, you can see it, if it's marked in green, it means that someone from their contact list also made reservation for this restaurant in the same hour. So on the left, you see the intrusive design, in which the user can tell by default who will be these people, where they're going to be in the restaurant. While in the right side, you see that he can tell that someone he knows is going to be in the restaurant, but he can't tell who. So we have these 2 designs. I would also like to give an example of institutional case. So in this case, you see it's a chat app, and we have ads in both of the cases. But So the chat is about flying to Spain, and on the left you see the intuitive design in which it can be understood that the application reads the chat, because the chat is about flying to Spain, and so is the application. So is the ad is about flying to Spain. And on the right you see the respectful design in which you can see an ad, but it has nothing to do with flying to Spain. Okay, and here we had, as I said, we had 3 social, and you have 2 more social here, and 1 more institutional example on the right. So what did we get? So just to explain how I'm presenting the results, so on the bottom you see 2 scenarios that have institutional aspects, and on the up you see all the social scenarios. So to analyze the results, we conducted t-tests between the design per each subscale. And we saw that, the first thing that we see that we only find significant difference between the design in the case where there was social aspect. When looking inside the subscale, we find mixed results in which in some case we had significant difference between the design only in the risk, and in other case we had significant design only in social or institutional aspect. And we also had an example in which we found significant difference between the design in the risk, but in this case, the participant found what we considered as a respectful design, so the participant found it as riskier design. As for institutional aspects, we did not find significant difference for any of the subscale. Okay, so to summarize our results, so we found that users perceived information system through 3 distinct aspects: institutional, social, and risk. And when comparing design, we find that they're mostly able to differentiate between privacy designs if it's about social aspect. So what could be possible explanation for our results? Why did we only find institutional significant difference with social aspects? One possible explanation is that our scale is not sensitive enough. When we developed it, we aimed it to be a generic scale that can fit every system and every case, social or institutional, and it might be the case if it's only sensitive for social. Another possible explanation is that we only explored 2 institutional aspects, and maybe if we tried more, so we will get another outcome. And another explanation that we thought about is in user experience field, we have something named as perceived affordances, in which users perceive something about what he do. So in this case of the tubes, it's really, the affordances is not very good. It's not understood what we're supposed to do with the tube, unlike in the case of button in which you push and switch the flip and etc. So with privacy, it also might be a possible explanation that systems have weaker or stronger privacy affordances. And with social aspects, it might be that they have a stronger privacy affordances because users use social systems so they can understand a lot easier what's going on. So they understand that if they see someone's information, so that other people can see their information as well. And with institutional aspects, it might be different. So it's much harder to understand what is the data flow, what is happening with the data. So the privacy affordances in the case of institutional systems or institutional designs is much weaker. So it's not necessarily that people don't care about institutional aspects, rather just they don't understand it. Based on our study results, we developed AP testing, which basically allows developers, researchers, organizations to do the same thing that we did, and allow them to upload screenshot of their explored system and to conduct the same study that we did. We also have the questions in this system. So to summarize, so we wanted to bring user-centered design to privacy by design so we can involve users doing privacy by design processes. We found that users perceive system privacy based on 3 aspects: institutional, social, and risk. And we called organizations that if they want to develop systems that are more privacy respectful, we call them to involve the users. You can use the AP testing. and rely on user-centered design, and also to consider the 3 aspects that we found. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have some time left for questions. So I'm going to ask some questions here. So did that surprise you a little bit when you were looking at these cases where you didn't find a statistical difference between some of the cases? Because in the case you just put in there, in terms of the holidays, it's pretty clear that one is actually processing what they are talking about, and the other one, it doesn't. So it seems like pretty privacy invasive, and the difference, and they seem just to regard both as equally privacy invasive, I guess. What was your interpretation of that?
So you're asking why we didn't, in the institutional case, how
The institutional, for instance, I'm asking about if you were surprised and what kind of interpretation you make of this lack of differences, where, for instance, in this case, one could think like, well, in one, you're just putting there an ad that doesn't require any kind of information processing. For the other one, you have to actually process what they are talking about to be able to make a recommendation. So it's clearly more privacy invasive, but it seems like users didn't perceive it as that.
Yeah, so either again that our scale is not sensitive enough, or another possible that we may not reviewing that clearly enough that what exactly is going on. I mean, for you, probably most people in the room understand that they're reading and this is privacy invasive. Maybe for a more general population, they need something stronger to make a clear understatement of what's going on, of how the information flows, so it will be more obvious that, hey, someone is reading your messages. But that might be possible.
Did you get any kind of qualitative data about that?
That might be a very good idea for.
Yeah, because maybe they might just say like, I mean, okay, now if I get some ad, I prefer it to be something relevant to me, or I don't know. Yeah, okay. So we actually have one question here. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Julia Byrne, International Computer Science Institute. So with the interface that you have, the AP testing, have people been using that? And do you have a sense of whether it's more people who are just like, hey, we've got some designs, we'll throw them in here, or whether they were really setting out to like, or whether it's designers who actually care about designing for privacy and are, setting out to say, are our instincts correct about what people are going to, we have these 2 designs, we really want to figure this out, or is it more just?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. I mean,
so who's using your AP testing, and what are they? Are people using it, and what are they using it for?
What's that?
Your AP testing interface.
Yes.
Who's using it, and what are they? Do you have a sense of how they are using that information that they're getting out of it?
You're referring to the study that we conducted.
You said at the end we've created a thing, or was I misunderstanding that?
The A/B testing or P testing? I'm really.
The AP testing.
What we developed.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we developed it. Okay, so we developed it based on that. They did not use it. I mean, this is something that it is based on our study, and now other people, researchers or organizations, can use that so they can reach people easily and do a large-scale study of people's privacy preferences. So this is the idea of other people to use it, similar to usability testing, basically.
Yeah. So, but has it been used?
Oh, no.
Yes.
And no one used it. Well, no one asked me yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Haejang Kim, and I'm from Texas A&M University. I wanted to actually start by saying I really enjoyed your presentation. I myself think privacy by design is actually key to most of the problems in privacy to improve. So your general way of setting up in a very rigorous way ways to measure things, setting up a platform so that it's easy. I totally agree with the fact that this is really about having good HCI kind of interface and user experience. I'm not one of them. I actually work with a great person who does that. But my question was, privacy, in my experience, is a very personal thing. So in that, especially in this user interface space, I don't personally think there is one right privacy design. And it's more about there are segments of people who like certain kinds of things. I mean, in a way, I have seen that it could be 180% like difference in opinion in terms of this is more privately respectful than the other one. So it's really difficult to maneuver that space, and was wondering what's your experience in using privacy by design to maneuver the personal opinion of privacy in this space.
Okay. So I think that's similar to when you conduct usability testing. So you have in mind who are your users, and you want the product to fit them. So it might also be similar in this case, that if you know your users are more or less privacy savvy or not, so you might want to take this into consideration, their personal privacy perception. Obviously, there's no one right answer, but if you do want to have a general of more people expecting you, so you might be expecting your decision, so you might want to use such thing, because there were privacy cases in which many people disagree with the company. So in this case, doing such an experiment in advance might help you not to launch something that a lot of people would disagree with your design. That's what I think.
Okay, so let's thank Oshrat again.
Thank you very much.